I would not say that like shift from on to cloud. The shift was to have it centralized.
Hi Yatin, welcome to TMT with IDCUBE. You presenting a $1 billion group, Barakah Holdings. We are thankful to them as well for letting you do this for us. The idea of TMT is to fill in a real-time experience around access control for the sake of education. What we believe there is lack of discussions, which drives knowledge, interest into this very niche industry of access control. And we want different industry leaders' perspective, how they see an experience with access control as a subject. Our audience for this kind of discussion would be the consumers, the end customers like you. They would be the dealers and integrators, and so as our competitors.
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be coming and discussing with you about it. Leader, I would not comment on it. Yes, I do lead a team of 25. I've been here in this industry for almost 30 years now and have gone through a lot, specifically in UAE region, where almost 26 years of it is now spent in UAE as such, Dubai specific. So I've seen Dubai growing in terms of its infrastructure growth, the requirements, the laws, the regulations, everything as such.
Although you've been pretty moderate in saying not a leader, but for me, you are looking at, what transformation you have brought into your organization and you actually are a very proactive leader in terms of with the kind of scale what you have, transitioning that kind of an organization into what you just did is a leader only can do that with the right vision. However, for my audience and our audience rather, I would like to understand your experience as an IT leader and your exposure and experience with security, and to be specific with access control, how you have seen access control evolved in last so many years, and according to you, what is the future look like? Although we do understand it kind of experience are kind of different from region to region, and the future also depends on a lot on experiences. But since we are sitting in UAE, in Dubai, I would like to understand what do you see and how do you see and how it has evolved in this region over past many years, and what kind of shape will it take in the future?
So going back onto the experiences, I started my career as a programmer though. So I know and understand at that point of time, it was the only security which was to have a code, RBACs, role-based access controls, push in and only give a limited access. Then on to the infrastructure, the initial start days, and even probably many of our viewers also would understand, or your viewers also would understand, the security in the region at that time, and even to a certain extent it still remains, because of huge manpower and a cheap manpower, it was all based on physical security. You would literally have a key to open the door, have a security guards securing your securities, or to the warehouses or anything. Mine was shift towards this infrastructure and the security part of it. It was limited only up to firewalls, securing and ensuring the data centers are secured. It was mainly physical or perimeter security. And the buttons, you have a code placed in and you have the keys to open the locks, so on and so forth. So, evolving from a IT engineer to IT infrastructure manager, all what we were doing was that like ensure that like there is a physical security guard placed there in front of the data center. The lights are switched on, switched off when the people leave, and the people who will gain access would have a limited access, and the keys, duplicate keys. So it was all about keys, and then you will have those magnetic locks, and then the door locks where you will have again the security key. That time, when I look back, there was nothing was as because the phenomenal growth UAE was having, the vision of Sheikh Mohammed, wherein he had ensured that like people get their freedom, companies get their freedom, and then the law of the land, you follow it. It was not to do with anything to do with the security or to locking the people. It was ensuring to allow for the growth of the organization. So organizations were growing, manpower was abundant, and it was all about the physical security. Then came in the times when people started understanding, because of this huge amount of wealth, the theft started coming in, pilferages started happening, and then it was more emphasis was given on how am I going to do the security of it. The technologies have evolved, and then came in more and more people started duplicating the things, gaining access to it, and so on and so forth. So what happened for us and for me, when I was at that time, I was with the freight forwarding company. And in the freight forwarding company, you would have many number of outlets. Business was growing, so outlets were opened. There was collections which was been done. Money was kept in the physical securities which were there, or a lockers, or I would call it as like small boxes. They were locked. However, the theft would happen, and then tracing back onto how did it happen, who happened. It was more to do with duty roster kept on a paper that security guard X was there on the duty. I had given the key to Y person. Cameras were limited. There were no much of a security camera or CCTV cameras which were there. That's how it started evolving. People started depending on putting more cameras. They started putting in more controls over this. But then still it was decentralized. So for me, the security went on increasing in terms of technology. However, the dependence was still decentralized. There was no centralization. I remember that when I had joined in, the warehouses and then the different locations where these things which were there were no connectivity. So I started introducing the VPNs. Earlier it was all telecoms and people were calling each other and then passing on the information. We introduced VPN. We started connecting those, making them centralized. That's where the management then appreciated by saying that like, yes, now I'm having a vision of how and where the things are being controlled or where the things are getting missed out. Digitization was not there still. The papers were still there. Police would come in case of this theft. Who was there? Let's say maybe dating back to 5 years or 2 years back, the paper would have been lost. I now have the trace because we started digitizing. After connecting or having centralization, people would be able to do the monitoring and would have a record of what was happening inside. I remember at that time there was this company called BlackBerry, and it was only device for the corporates where they would say encrypted, fully secured, and that's how they were marketing it. Having a BlackBerry in your hand was a prestige at the time. That was the only phone with the secure transactions and messaging happening. There were no other phones. BlackBerry, that's how BlackBerry went up. But then what happened? The technology caught up. BlackBerry did not keep up with it, and they were down.
So, Yatin, we spoke about how it was so traditional in nature, physical security guards with manual keys, very decentralized, right? What is your first encounter? What do you have the very first memory about access control?
For me, again, the first one, even at that time as well, when the freight forwarding company with their different offices, the only access control which they were only having this magnetic locks and the push buttons, where there would be keypad and the keypad would have a lock, and those keys would be given to, or the number or the combination would be given to the employees. You come in, you key in your credentials or the numbers, there were no cards at that time as well. Okay, cards were introduced later on. In fact, like I had been taken an initiative of introducing the card, the RF cards, and
And what year was that, if I may ask?
it was sometime in, I would say, 2008, 2009. So, employees would have the cards, they would be considered as their badge IDs. It was still not working, or it was not still taken as an attendance. It was still manual attendance, but it was only for making sure that like no required.
And when did you introduce the cards, the smart cards basically, and when did you thought of centralizing what you centralized, even if it was on premise?
See, what had happened was that like there was a requirement which came in. If you probably would remember that like sometime around 2007, there was a depression. And with the depression, the entire businesses, they had started off on making sure that like how can you have a lean management? How can you cut corners on in terms of the cost? Because everybody was in a depression. The industry was down. Those who were booming at 200% had gone down to 50%. And then the manpower was looked at. How I can remove the manpower. And the manpower removal also would mean that like I would have less number of people who would take care of my security. Access to the offices is required. However, I cannot have the security guards. Yes, let's put cameras. Okay, that's one of it. Let's give the cards to the employees. Yes, so that's how it traveled and that's how it happened. So management was looking for a solution to ensure that like, okay, can I run my organization and my operations without having to worry about how and who will come in. The cards came in. The RF cards and the proximity cards came in.
Again, what year was that, if I may ask?
It was same around 2008, 2009. That's
okay. So you basically moved from static key based solution to the smart card based solution around 2008 and 9. And what would have been the strength of the overall organization or the scale? Was it really big or?
Oh yeah, this was freight forwarding company, and it was an international company. The number of employees almost were around 1,000. So it was an enterprise, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. I mean, great to learn that that you have seen it from the days when it was actually physical in nature. There were no as such intelligence around. There was no smartness of the system. It was very manual. Even if there were keypad-based systems, so it was all static keys, distributed all around. Anybody could have passed on those keys to anyone else and gain an access. So from there to here, it's a huge transition.
In fact, like there was nothing of this work from home was not a culture at that time at all. It was all working on premise. That's it.
True. And if I may ask, like, how do you really see access control in this region in next 3 to 5 years? What do you think? What will change in next 3 to 5 years?
See, access control or security per se, what I would say is that like now it's not a requirement, it is more of a compliance and a necessity. Governance is one aspect of it and compliance is a second aspect of it. More and more governments, specifically since it's a UAE region, and given the fact that like the locals are being promoted or encouraged to come on job and then like do more of a job, it is the identity, because they take it very, very seriously that like what is my information, where is my information going, how is it going to be used. So it is compliance that they're looking at. You are talking about Emirates ID, where the Emirates ID was introduced and then the chip which has been introduced on it. So you have a facial recognition, face information or biometric which have been captured. Your thumb been captured. Anything which you do now is digital imprints which are spread over across. So access control, it may not be just a physical access control. This is what I tell my team as well, that like when you're looking at the cyber security, don't just look at cyber as an internet. Cyber is everywhere. What we are looking at in this region as well, with the advert of this AI coming in picture, locals coming into jobs, locals are looking at working and taking on more and more roles, the privacy and the compliance, these are the most important factors which are there.
So you are saying because more interest from the locals into the business domains, various business domains, uh, they want their identity to be protected, and the people who are working for them, their identities to be protected. Uh, and second, they want the systems, or rather, there is a demand for the system to be intelligent and not just smart. And that's what you see the next 5 years will drive.
One aspect of it, the UAE region, specifically if you say Dubai, Abu Dhabi is still, slowly moving towards it. Dubai, if you look at it, it is multicultural, multinationality, and there are so many people who are coming in here. Europeans and Europe specifically is all about the compliance and identity. So privacy of the data is very, very essential. This is what they bring in.
Okay, so due to the drive of the multicultural and due to that drive, the compliances, the strict compliance or stringent compliances will take place, and that will sort of change the course how access control will move, and there might be some additional local laws and governance around access control.
See, now with the cloud strategies which are coming in, multi-layered clouds is something which is happening. You have a European cloud, you have a Middle East cloud, you have North American clouds. However, the companies which are operating here.
You mean to say that the instances hosted on cloud in this specific region, when you say the American or the European or the Middle East cloud, that means if it's one data center or one cloud services provider, whether the instance on that cloud is hosted in the States or in Europe or in the Middle East,
still have to comply with a multi-country and specific to those countries' compliances and the laws and regulation. I would have a cloud service provider, access control service provider in this region. The data, if I have, let's say, European people working in it, and if I tell them that like your data is hosted here, you are complying to the UA regulations, but then still they would like to have.
So you mean to say that more localization into a very divided world, the more localization is required, and that would be the another key factor in changing the course of how access control or any other security solution will be viewed and weighed while the decisions are being made. Okay.
You need,
that's
you need AI. However, AI comes at a cost. How much do you allow for the AI to look into your data? LLMs, learnings, you're exposing your data towards it. And what I'm seeing now is that like we are literally looking into the contracts for this particular reasons. I am okay with you using my data, however, how it is going to be used. I have my employees who are there, and then this same refers back to my locals are there on my payroll. Europeans are there on my payroll, and then like this access is granted.
So you are saying that data privacy is sort of taking that role, which is again will be looked at very seriously, how and where the data is being protected and secured. Okay, great. That's a great point, Yatin. I think you made some really great points here. One thing which I really admire about you and your organization, the step what you guys took probably last year, what you mentioned, moving away from the on-premise access control platform to a SaaS or access control as a service or a cloud-based platform. Knowing the kind of scale you have in your organization, what really prompted the thought of having this transition, from moving away from the on-premise to cloud, and how this decision came to life? If I may ask this for our audience, I'm pretty sure there are many who wants to know how and what really prompts the thought, and what should be spoken about, and how the decision should be made and why it should be made?
See, it was not very easy for convincing to the management that what you see is what you get. That's what they were of the mentality. On premise is something which I can see, it's under my control, I can then touch it and it's under my control. Going beyond that, if you are a company, if you are an organization where you have only one location, this works fine. But then when it comes to multi-locations, and the strategy or strategically where the government is moving towards now, specifically if I may want to talk about before I come back to this point, is ADMCC, which is a centralized monitoring control of Abu Dhabi, where they monitor the series CCTV of any and every organization. When they issue you a license and if you're renewing your trade license, they want you to ensure that like you're complying to the security standards of theirs. They consider security as a top priority. So going back or coming back to your point when you said that like what made you to change the direction. What is now happening is that like more and more it is no more or no longer that the government or those compliance agencies come to your premise to check and ask for, can you provide me, or can they, or to ask and come to audit you. It's no longer that. What is now is that like give us access to your data, to your information, and we will look at it to see whether you are complying to our standards or not. So auditing is no longer on premise. Auditing is more of a remote and providing the access towards it. So out of the box thinking for this purpose was that like I have multi locations. Now when I have a multi locations, how am I going to go and do this one? So I have to have access given to these agencies from multi locations. Is it right to be reactive, or let's go to proactive? So proactive approach would have been, let's have it centralized. The concerns which are regarding, oh, my now data is going to reside on the cloud. So how it will happen? Cloud has evolved. So if the system which is currently on premise is not scalable, infrastructure cost of having the system is going to go up. Manpower required to maintain that is also going to go up. More and more compliance requirements are coming from the government. You are not able to cope up with it. Internal and external audit teams asking for traceability of the movement of your people. Clients who are hosted, let's say, they are asking for audit trails of what you do, how you do, and where you are. If you are not able to do that one, then you are going to go back and you are going to be left behind. So that was the key factor of shifting from on-premise to, I would not say that like shift from on to cloud. The shift was to have it centralized somewhere where scalability, the governance, auditing, compliance, all are going to be at one place. And that's how we shifted to cloud.
Okay. Yeah. So just reiterating for our audience, to understand, one, that there is a very positive force which we see from the local government, wherein they are digitalizing all government services. And I think what I read some time back, 90% of government services have already gone digital by the end of year 2025. That itself opened the vision for everyone else to, follow the vision of the local governments and the region. Second, what you mentioned, a very great point. Obviously, every organization will look at the cost of management, the entire security infrastructure, and the kind of manpower cost which goes behind it, kind of IT resources that goes behind it. So that was another thought which prompted the decision to go on cloud, so that the cost can be saved or minimalized. Scalability, while the organizations obviously are growing, they are very decentralized. Each branch, region, facility will grow with respect to its own business around it. So third is easy auditing, so that everyone have an ease of access into the solution without having an access on the central server and following the old way of doing and managing those clients and having an access through that client into those databases. So these are kind of thoughts which sort of prompted the decision at your end.
One more thing which was there was that, like, the at an enterprise level where we are, or I am at enterprise level, management or the enterprise, the policy is single policy. So you have policies which are prepared. Enforcing those policies is the second factor of it. Having decentralized, places, or I would say the systems, are we sure, or how can I ensure that those policies, let's say I say policy is that X level of managers or X level of employees will not gain access to this, and this is something which I want to now roll it out. How do I ensure that the policies are rolled out accurately across the board or across the locations? Some locations, the people there would say, yes, we have enforced this policy. How do I ensure that, like, it has been rolled out? It's like, you're trusting somebody, and when some access issues happen, you would know about it at a later stage, and it would be said that, oh, the policy, we never got a circular about it. We never, configured it in that way, and we did not do that roll off that policy. At a centralized level, if it is a cloud level, one click, I push that policy, and that's it. Policy is rolled out across all the location uniformly.
Okay. So easy to use. You don't want to have multiple servers, no federation or federated architectures. Easy to operate, easy to maintain, minimalistic, and on the move, on the go, sitting anywhere, open your instance and enforce a policy. Great. On a lighter side, do you also see already, some cost reduction and some, not just the cost reduction, but also some, the manual effort minimalization with the help of centralizing on cloud?
For sure, yes. But then, like, this is the misconceptions which people are having, that centralization, having to go, or you have shifted to cloud, there is AI, so the jobs are going to go. There's going to be a cost reduction. First cost reduction would be manpower cost reduction. The discussions which I have with my team around that is that we are not reducing anything. It's the role shift which is going to be happening. Now, earlier you were literally physically going and checking the things. Now you are into an audit role. You're changing your focus now onto more compliance. Upgrade yourself, cyber security. Now you need to start looking into every aspect of just not relying on cloud and them having to give you or provide you with the security, ensuring that they're doing so. So you are back trailing onto the audit trails, you are going and checking the governance aspects of it, you are upgrading yourself. Yes, certain number of jobs, some part of it will get reduced. That's how the goal is. You need to reduce, because infrastructure, why did you go on the cloud? You wanted to reduce the cost on the infrastructure. Why did you go on the cloud? You wanted to ensure that, like, less number of manpower is there. But then that has reduced my manpower on, let's say, security personnel, but I have increased on cyber security team. So there is a team which is looking after now more of a review basis, more becoming proactive rather than reactive. That's how it is. So it's not that everything is going out. There is shift, and there is a difference which is
There is a positive shift.
Positive shift, of course.
And I agree to that. And since you have been continuously highlighting and mentioning cybersecurity, compliances, local laws, regulations, right? You are heading IT operations for Barakah. What was going through the discussions on the table between you and your infosec teams while you were analyzing a cloud-based access control platform? What were all those parameters which you wanted to ensure that you are complying or the platform is complying to all those metrics before you pick one of them?
Cloud no longer is a fashion anymore. Earlier it was this X company has gone to cloud, Y company, let's go to the cloud. It was like ISO 9000. My company is a ISO 9000 certified company. That would mean that more clients would come to me. Why? Because I'm ISO certified. ISO certification, cloud, that's not fashion anymore. It's a necessity. Uh, Same principles applied here as well. I told my team specifically, when we were coming or the decision was being made to choose a system which would be cloud-based, centralized, and ensure go outside the box. Think in a way that what I will be asking you tomorrow, I will just ask you a question. Get me this report. I want this audit. I want this dashboard seen. I want to see that there is a track of how and when the access was granted to this person. What was the moment? Which was the location where this person was? This is what you should be getting in. Now,
But if I
security.
may ask that you must be concerned on the compliance. What I have seen that not every platform as of now has learned about various compliances. A lot of access control platforms still operating on premise because of a very common and basic fact that is the actually only demand, fortunately and fortunately, in these regions because of various factors. uh, since you were pretty proactive, and I would say that I think you are one of the biggest organization in the region which adopted cloud-based access control, and I'm pretty sure you guys also would be very concerned about the various certifications and compliances while you were picking one of your solution. So what were those, and how did you ensure that yes, the platform must have those compliances, and like which are the top compliances as per you in this region?
The main factors which were there when we were going and selecting the cloud was, of course, like multi-tenancy is there now on all the clouds. How do I segregate and how do I ensure that like what my information which is there is segregated and taken care of? What are the possibilities of cost management, the FinOps basically? The compliances would be more of a GDPR, PDPL, and in the UAE regulations which are there, those regulations have to be taken care of. Not all the clouds
When
are
you what you
matured.
said, I'm sorry for interruption, but what you said GDPR and P? What is PDPL?
It is more of a newer standards which is come in, which is followed from the European side of it, plus the UAE as well. UAE, there is a law 16 or section 16, which is now more on the cloud and the security side of it. On also the audit availabilities which are there, which should be available, and most important for any cloud selection is lock-in and exit strategies. If we are going with a cloud, if the cloud provider is going to be locking
We
in,
will come back to that in a little while. Uh, before that, let's try and see what are the compliances which you must have in a platform in this region. You already mentioned a couple of them, which is GDPR and PDPL and certain guidelines under Section 16. Uh, how about compliances like SOC 2 and VAPT, although VAPT seems to be very common in nature, and various other ISOs? So, does that also play a role? I mean, when we talk to customers like fintech or banking and all, they are very concerned about a platform being a SOC 2, Type 2, or SOC 3 and having some ISO standards. So, was it also a concern for you while you were picking up a platform?
for us, Okay, there are two. When you come to the SOC 2 and Type 2, these are more of for the financial side of it, where the Oracle, like, you would say that like if I'm selecting an ERP system which is cloud hosted, and for them the SOC 2 and Type 2 is more required and compulsory. If I were to have a cloud and if I were to have a access control system which is on cloud, SOC 2 to a certain extent, yes, but then like it is not so of a primary focus.
Okay, so it wasn't mandatory for you, but you were always on for GDPR because you wanted data privacy.
Because this was, again, I would say this is more specific for us because it was nothing to do with the financials. So for us, we were not hosting or we were not putting anything which was going to be exposing us financially. So that's the reason why SOC 2 Type 2 were not more of a concern for us. But for others, it may be there. Uh, Attendance, which we would collect it based on the swipes which would happen, again, that was not having any financials implications. So you're not exposed to financials.
Okay, I think that's a great point what you just mentioned, since you're not exposing any financials on cloud and it is just about the security. So you were not as concerned about having the platform SOC 2 compliant. If it is well and good, but otherwise also you were pretty much okay with it. How big a concern data sovereignty was for you, having the data resided within the country? Because I find that's a very talkative point when it comes to cloud in the entire Gulf region.
Again, the UAE government states that like the data should be available and hosted. However, they don't force you saying that like the data should be residing on the UAE data centers, as long as there is a compliance. And the, as I said to you, that like if there is a GDPR compliance is met with, audit trails are available, they are okay with it. There's no compulsion that like you have to have it in the specific to the UA region. If there is an data which is to be exported, data is to be brought in. Tomorrow, if there are claims, maybe from the Europeans or locals or something, GDPR is considered as a standard regulations. More of a regulations or a compliances what UAE follows are the replicated standards from Europe and other regions.
Okay. Do you also see ADMCC, what is that called? ADMCC and CIRA to play a role in access control and specifically cloud-based access control? Because what I see and understand, when it comes to video, there are very strict guidelines as of now not to go on cloud in UAE, not elsewhere in the region. So do you also see something like that happening on access control? Have you heard anything from ADMCC or CIRA?
Not right now. They are only more concerned about, because see what happens in case of access control and CCTV is that like in the access control system you are capturing the digital footprint of a person to ensure that like you're giving access to the right person at the right time at the right location. In terms of a security or CCTV, you are literally capturing the identity of the person or a face, and that's where they are concerned about. They don't want the information or the facials to be stored or even to be exposed to any of the issues.
I would like to interrupt. It's a very talkative point again here and very hot topic. When the identities needs to be protected, specifically the biometric identity. And when you say they do not want it to be exposed, so when you say they, who are you mentioning?
Now when you are referring back to this ADMCC standards and their requirements are specific in terms of the privacy, the videos which are there, nobody else, in fact like even the management of the company don't have access to the CCTV system once the standards are ensured or enforced. So only security guards or security companies, and they also have to have a certified people or certified guides from ADMCC on how they're going to monitor, what they're going to monitor, and when they are inside these control rooms, what access they would have. So they would not have access to any of the USBs or any kind of devices on which the data can be taken out. access to that system is only limited and given to the people who are certified. That's how the ADMCC standards are. So it's more on the security, and recently there were a lot of, and there are a lot of companies who offer footfall or the people movement, and that is based on the CCTVs. This is specifically prohibited, that you cannot have a capture camera. There are, you might
Okay,
have
so
heard
you
that a lot of
cannot
cameras.
have the biological identity captured in any manner and exposed outside, or can be used with no ways
Because
and
the
means
CCTV,
without their
they were
approval.
a lot of offer, a lot of brands. They were offering that I could tell you male, female, footfall, number of count, how many people came in, how many people went out. This is explicitly not allowed in terms of ADMCC and the Security Council. RERA is slowly enforcing the same regulations.
Okay, so we have not been hearing anything as of now from ADMCC and CIRA as such with respect to access control. But yes, there is definitely a genuine concern about not exposing any biological identity to the outside world from the region. Yeah, okay, great. I think great point. That's it, Yatin.
There is a unification or a single card or single visa across the GCC is being considered and getting rolled out, but they're delayed because of the same issues, which are how you're going to have a single identity across, and what will be the standards which will be put in place. So this is getting little delayed, but should come in. But again, I don't see any reason why the access control, there would be any limitations or anything which would the standards would come in. I think it's going to be more of, in fact, this is going to be helpful. Why? Because GCC wide, and they would definitely require a provider who would be cloud plus a centralized
Before we
system.
wrap up, I have one last point to discuss with you, and that is with all practical scenarios, with all your analysis, what were the key metrics or the evaluation point for you, or which you would like to recommend others uh, while selecting an access control platform, and specifically a cloud-based access control platform? What do you really want to suggest to our audience?
Access control systems, they are no longer, the very early point which I made about role-based access controls, device-based access controls. Now, access control has to have a lot of features when it comes to dynamic change and shift. I could have an identity in terms of my biometrics. I could have an identity which would be more on the integrated with my ERP system. So an access control system now which allows for such an integration and tiering up from level 1, level 2, level 3, scalable, and does not limit itself. That's what is going to be the future, and that's what should be the factor when you're going and selecting a access control system. Also, what matters is that, like, what is there behind, who is the team behind, who is the team who is supporting it, because sales would be done, and then the post sales is what would matter. Do I have, or does that company have a development team which understands and is in progressive way of thinking and taking it forward by adapting to the situations which are happening around the world?
So you were saying one point which you mentioned, which we also believe in, is the multi-identity user experience because of the dynamic shift in the access control industry and the user's experience. User would like to have an identity of their choice, and the platform should be able to offer that flexibility to the organization and the user. Okay, that's a great point. Second, the scalability. Uh, the platform must offer the scalable architecture, and you are saying all of this should be supported with the right teams which have best support system in place, which can infuse that brand trust and confidence in the user, or the management or the security team which are managing security?
There are a lot of startups who have come in, who have promised that, like, our system is the best, great ideas, great systems. However, if there is no funding, there is no backup, there are no plans to sustain that, it really stops the other company or other organization. Let's say if I were to select just based on excellent features availability, however, I don't do a background check of the company, it's going to be more of a hurdle and more of a problem for me rather than a step forward.
So you are saying that while there are a lot of startups and we should be very positive about the startup culture, which we are, but innovation and the ideas should always be backed up with some real time experience and the confidence which could come from the financial bandwidths or the resource bandwidth within the region. So great. So you want the innovation should be backed up with the uh, right amount of force and strength in order to execute that innovation in real time and on field basically. Okay, great. And anything else you would like to convey to our audiences there?
For me, what I believe in is that, like, it's a cliche, I would say, but then, like, thinking inside the box never wins you in a race. You cannot sustain. You should think outside the box, adapt to the changes rather than staying in that and be the change. If you are in the box, you will remain in the box. As an examples of those, I gave you example of a BlackBerry, the Kodaks. They stayed in the box. Now they're no more. Uh, I am in the position where I am because adapting to the change, allowing the change to happen, thinking outside the box. There is now, I don't even go into technical with my team anymore. What I do is that, like, I look into more of the management part of it and keep up with the business goals and their objectives which are there. If you, being a IT leader, if you can do that, that's something which will take you further.
I must admire that, Yatin, and that's a very progressive mindset. Um, However, thank you for doing this for us, and hope this communication, could drive newer perspective in our audience, more knowledge, and I hope they would be better trained and informed in order to handle, bottlenecks while adopting cloud. And that's a wrap from our side. Thank you very much once again. And again, we really admire you being the leader what you are and taking that step and becoming an example in front of many other customers here that be with the change. Thank you very much.
Thank you.